This conference will now be recorded.
So in yesterday's session, a demo session, we have discussed about what is performance testing and the LoadRunner architecture and an example of how to record and replay the script. And also we have discussed about the course content and we have discussed few question and answers. Continuation to the yesterday's session, uh, we will be discussing about the types of performance testing today. Okay, so performance before I start discussing about performance testing, before I start discussing about performance testing, uh, I would like to add one important point here, that performance testing is measured in terms of these three, like speed, stability and scalability. Okay, so what is speed, stability and scalability we will discuss. But one thing is, earlier, maybe few years ago, I cannot say the exact time, but the performance testing was measured only in terms of speed. So when I say speed, how fast the application is responding to your request. That means you click a link or you click a button, how fast you are getting the response, right? So performance testing was always measured in terms of speed earlier, but considering the recent changes in the performance testing world, now the performance testing is also measured in terms of stability and scalability also. What do you mean by stability? Stability means the performance should not degrade even after using the application for long time. Say for example, if you are using an application, let's say Facebook. Now you are continuously using the application for 2-3 hours. Now you are seeing notifications, you are seeing some text messages or some videos or whatever it is. So what should happen is the performance should not degrade. For example, you just started using Facebook, it's working fine, it's responding fast, and then you continue to use Facebook for the next 1 hour, and after 1 hour it should not slow down. That means the performance should not slow down even after using the application for longer duration. That's what stability means. And then scalability means the application's ability to handle increasing user load without performance degradation. So for example, uh, today the application is handling some 100 users. So maybe after 3 months or 4 months, if the users are increased from 300 to, let's say, 1,000, the application performance should not degrade. So the performance testing world is concentrating on these three terms like speed, stability and scalability. So your application should withstand okay, in all these aspects: speed, stability and scalability. Okay, so now when we discuss about the types of performance testing, I will relate the terms speed, stability and scalability with with the types of performance testing. Actually, I do have slides which will explain about the different types of performance testing. Okay, I do have slides for each of those, but I don't want to explain through slides now. Rather, I can share these slides, but I want to discuss over here, and I can write the definition and everything. I can explain everything clearly here for now, and uh, uh, I'm pretty much sure you will get these documents for sure. Okay, these PowerPoint slides and whatever the documents we discuss in our day-to-day sessions, all these documents you will be receiving for sure. Okay, so instead of going through the slides, let me explain you the different types of performance testing here. Okay, so let me write types of performance testing. Okay, so there are few types of performance testing which we need to discuss. Important ones are load testing. Okay, and then you have uh, stress testing. Okay, and then you have endurance testing. Actually, you can also call it as soak testing or duration testing. All three names are same. So some projects might call it as an endurance testing. Some projects they call it as soak testing. Some projects they call it as a duration testing. Okay. So the next one is, let's say, scalability testing. Okay, and then you have load testing, stress testing, endurance testing, scalability testing, and then you have volume testing. And then recently the important you know type of testing is failover testing. Okay, in the recent times the projects are concentrating on this. Okay, so I will tell you how to test this also. uh, so in today's session, we will be discussing about the first 5 types of performance testing, because for the failover testing, we need to understand some other terms and concepts, like what is a server, what is an application server, what is a database server, what is a web server. Okay, so what is a protocol, or in fact about these servers. So if you know the definition of the app server, web server, database server and all, it will be easy for you to understand the failover testing. So anyhow, in the next session, we will be discussing about the server software architecture. Okay, so these slides we will discuss in our upcoming session. Let me open the slide and show you quickly in the next session. After that, in the same session, at the end, I will explain you uh, what is failover testing also. So we need to understand these slides. Okay, we need to understand these slides in order to understand failover testing. So in the next session, at the end of this session, we will discuss failover testing. Okay, in today's session, we will discuss about the first 5 types of performance testing. Okay, so let's begin with load test. So in fact, you can add a smoke test also, but we will discuss that later. That is not that important. So load test. So load test is the initial important test that we do for every project. So that means without load test, basically maybe you cannot run an endurance test, or maybe you cannot run a stress testing, maybe you cannot run a volume testing. So why? Because this is a prerequisite for the other types of testing. You can say that. Okay, if the load test is not successful, you cannot progress further. You cannot go for other types of testing, basically, because at any cost, the load test should be successful. Then only it's better to go for other types of tests. Okay, so now what do you mean by a load testing? So basically here we will check the speed of the application, checking the speed of the application by applying some load, or you can say by applying some expected load. Okay, so so here the term speed I'm relating to load test. Okay, I told you, right, performance testing is measured in terms of speed, stability and scalability. So the load test, here we are checking the speed of the application by applying expected load, and the term speed we are relating to load test. Now here in this load test, what exactly we will do? What is this expected load? Okay, what is this expected load? In the meaning, I've written expected load, right? What is this expected load? Basically, the expected load is nothing but the target volumes what we have to achieve, or you can say what the client is asking you to test. Okay, so let's say client is saying that, hey, I do have an application, let's say bank application. For that, you have to test with 500 users or 1000 users. Okay, so let's say the client is saying that, hey, you have to test my application with 1000 users, let's say, and they should achieve and they should achieve, let's say, 500 iterations. That's just an example. Okay, so now what is this 100 users? 100 users means 100 virtual users. You have to use 100 virtual users. Then what is this 500 iterations? The number of iterations that you need to achieve during the load test. Okay, so load test will always be run for 1 hour duration. for 1 hour duration. That any load test will run for 1 hour duration. Okay, so when they ask you to run a load test, you should schedule in such a way that it will run for 1 hour of duration. Okay, now when the client is giving you the target of 100 users and 500 iterations, so what is this 500 iterations? So let me tell you. So these 500 iterations you need to achieve in 1 hour. So that means after completion of 1 hour of load test, if you go back and check the results, you should achieve this 500 iterations when you run with 100 users. What is iteration? So yesterday I told you, for any bank, let's say for bank application, uh, what are the critical scenarios we discussed? Like transfer money is one critical scenario, download statement is another critical scenario, okay, and paying a credit card bill is another critical scenario, right? So let's say you take one scenario now. Let's say transfer money is one critical scenario. Okay, in this transfer money, what are the steps that are involved? So first you will launch the application, right? Then you log into the application, right? Then what you do, you select a beneficiary, right? You select the beneficiary, you enter the amount to be sent, right? And then you click transfer, right? Click transfer or send amount, whatever it is, and then log out. So these are the steps that are involved. These are the steps that are involved in the transfer money scenario, right? Now each of this particular step, you can consider it as one transaction. You can consider this as one transaction. Okay, so launch is one step, login is one step, select the beneficiary is one step, enter the amount is one step, click transfer button, one step, log out, one step. Now when you execute all these steps once, that becomes one iteration. Now when you execute all these steps twice, that becomes two iterations. When you execute all these steps 500 times, that becomes 500 iterations. So now what client is saying is, hey, for my bank application, for this particular scenario with 100 users, okay, in the 1 hour of load test, you have to run 500 iterations, and then you check the performance of the application. That means when 100 users are transferring money, okay, transferring money in the 1 hour duration, that 500 times, not every user 500 times. Here if they give you like this, some of you might think that, hey sir, one user 500 iterations. No, all 100 users together, they have to achieve 500 iterations, let's say. Okay, so that means 100 users together, they should run for 500 iterations in the 1 hour duration. So that is the target generally they give to us. Who is giving you this target? Client is giving you this target. Okay, so our performance testing work, or our daily our project activity starts with the requirements gathering. That means we should gather some information from client. So what are the things that we need to gather from client and all? We will discuss in our upcoming sessions. Maybe after 2 sessions, we have one important session on requirements gathering. Okay, so for now, what you have to understand is, load test is all about checking the speed of the application by applying some load. When you say speed, how fast these transactions are, or these steps are getting executed. How fast these steps are getting executed. When you run with 100 users for for 1 hour of duration, and then you achieve 500 iterations, then what are the response times? So how much time it has taken for launch, how much time it has taken for login, how much time it has taken for select a beneficiary. So all these steps, times, you will get it in the report. Okay, so now what exactly we are going to find out here? We are going to find out response times. What do you mean by response times? Response times are nothing but the amount of time taken by the server to send the response back. Okay. A request goes to server. For example, let's say this is one script, right? So let's say this is a request. Okay, in the demo session yesterday I showed you, right? So this is how the log of request will be. Now when this request goes to server, okay, that means when this request gets executed, you are getting some time. So here you see this is the response time, 0.018 seconds. 0.188 seconds is the response time. So that we have to find out, and we have to ensure, okay, that response times should not exceed SLA. SLA means service level agreement. SLA means service level agreement. Service level agreement means the client has an agreement with development team or the application team that you should develop my application in such a way that when a user clicks on a button or a link, the next page should come up in next 3 or 4 seconds. So that client will tell, that is the SLA what client has given. Now we will get the details, SLA details, before testing itself. Now then, whatever the response times we are getting, we have to compare with the SLA. If the SLA is 3 seconds, then you should compare, let's say, all these results. For example, if let's say the SLA is 3 seconds, now we have to compare all these results. Now are all of these less than 3 seconds? If yes, that's fine. If any of these transactions are greater than 3 seconds, then you need to address it. You need to inform the developer that, hey, this transaction, okay, in the load test we have seen that it is exceeding SLA, and it is getting like 8 seconds, 10 seconds, or whatever the time you observe. Okay, so overall, the load test is all about checking the speed of the application by applying expected load or okay, and then load test will always run for 1 hour duration. Expected load, you will get it like this. Okay, probably you'll get it like this. You might get it in a different way also. We will see that in our upcoming sessions. So, and then what you exactly do here, we will find out the response times, and we have to ensure that the response time should not exceed SLA. Okay, now hope all of you understood what is one iteration. Okay, or what is iteration. Hope everyone understood what is iteration. When you execute all the steps of a scenario once, that becomes one iteration. Okay, now that is about load test case. Then and this is the first test that we do. This is the first major test that we do for every project. It's not about your company, my company, your project, my project. No, nothing. Every project everywhere across the world, the first major test that we do as part of performance testing is load test only. Okay, then let's discuss about stress testing. Stress testing is nothing but testing the application beyond the load, okay, beyond the load test volumes. So what do you mean by load test volumes? So let's say load test volumes is 100 users and 500 iterations is the load test volumes that we tested. 100 users and 500 iterations. So stress testing is anything beyond that. So let's say 150 users, 800 iterations, 200 users, 1000 iterations. Okay, 250 users, 1500 iterations. So anything beyond load testing, okay, any load applied beyond the load test is always considered as stress testing. Okay, so testing the application with more number of users than the load test. Okay, you can alternatively, you can write like this also. Testing the application with more number of users, okay, than load test. So this is also one way of explaining or understanding the stress testing. Now I have given some example, right? So if we are testing load test with 100 users, 500 iterations, probably we can stress the application by increasing the load. Let's say let's say 200 users and let's say 1000 iterations. That means we are stressing the application beyond the load test. And why we are stressing the application? Why we are stressing the application? To verify how the application is responding with more number of users than the load test. Okay, why are we doing a stress test, guys? Just to verify how the application is responding with more number of users than the load test. And stress test also, basically minimum you can run it for 1 hour. You can run it for 1 hour. Okay, stress testing you can run for 1 hour. Okay, then after that you have to check the SLS here also. Verify the SLS. So when you are stressing the application with more number of users than the load test, how the application is responding? What are the response times you are getting? Okay, are the response times within the SLA or not? Okay, so this is the main criteria of stress testing. This is the main criteria of stress testing, guys. Okay, so you can ask, sir, when you say we are testing the application with more number of users than the load test, to how much extent we can go, or to how much extent we can stress the application? So you can stress the application like two times or 3 times more than the normal load test, or sometimes if the client is explicitly saying, hey, stress the application until it breaks. Sometimes client will say that stress the application until it breaks. So what you have to do in that case? You have to keep on adding the users until the application breaks. Until the application breaks. Okay. So what do you mean by application breaks? So when you keep on adding the load, the server will crash, or you will get all errors like 500 error, 502 bad gateway error, all those things. So now in our upcoming sessions, we will clearly discuss what are the different types of errors we get. When do we get 502? When do we get 500? When do we get 503? Okay. When do we get 404, 400, 405, 401, 403? All these errors we'll discuss in detail. Okay. So this is about stress testing, guys. If someone is asking you what is stress testing, it's nothing but stressing the application beyond the target load test volumes. Okay, it's simple. Now, the next type of test what we are going to discuss today is endurance test, or endurance or soak or duration test. Very important one. And and most of the issues probably we will observe in these sort of tests. So all these three names are same: endurance or soak or duration, all three are same. Okay, all three are same. Okay. Okay, so the third type of test what we are going to discuss is endurance test, soak test, and duration test. Okay, so what is the difference between this test and the load test? So basically, this test we will run for longer duration to ensure stability. Okay, so earlier we have seen the term stability here. So that's where the endurance test is coming into picture. So we are testing the stability, okay, and to find out that the application performance is not degrading even after using it for longer duration. Okay, it's all about checking the stability of the application. So you can mention the same point here also. It's all about checking the stability of the application. So this test will run for longer duration. When you say longer duration, it's up to the project, but minimum you have to run for 3 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Minimum 3 hours. You can run for 5 hours, 8 hours, 1 day, 2 days, 2 days, 3 days. Okay, 3 days. Some projects very rarely will run for 5 days also. This is the worst case. Okay, in the recent projects in the last 1-2 years, what are the projects I have been working? We were maximum using 3, 5, and 8. 3, 5, and 8 for endurance or soak or duration test. Okay, long back we have run for 2 days, but still there are some projects across various companies where they run for 2 days or 3 days also, the endurance test. Why? They have to ensure that the application should not break in spite of running for longer duration. Okay, if you're running the application for 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, first thing you have to ensure is the application should not break. What do you mean by application should not break? The application should not crash. There are various reasons why application will crash. Okay, now that is one point. Okay, ensure that application doesn't crash. Okay, then second point, obviously you should see the application performance also. Application performance also. So verify application performance. When you say verify application performance, that is response times. See, why we have to verify response times here is, let's say you're running a test for 5 hours. In the first 1 hour, you got very good response times, like only 1 second or half second, something like that. But maybe after running for 2 hours or 3 hours, you saw that response times increased and you got some response times like 5 seconds, 8 seconds, 7 seconds, like that. And after running for 4 hours, you got like 10 seconds, 12 seconds. That means performance kept on degrading. There is a performance degradation here. Okay, so to identify those kind of performance degradation issues, we run this endurance test also. Okay, and then one point related to application crash is memory leakage. So to identify memory leakage, we will run this test. Okay, so the memory leakage mostly happens in endurance test. So what is memory leakage? Okay, why it occurs? We have a separate sessions. Okay, at the end. So we will discuss in detail, about memory leakage. What happens if we what should we do in case of memory leakage? What is our analysis approach? What should be our thought process? Okay, all those things we will discuss in our upcoming sessions. Okay, now one more important point here is, I told you about the number of hours we have to run, but there is one more point that you need to understand is, in some projects they will use the same amount of load what they used in load test. So let's say in load test they are using 100 users. So here also they will use 100 users only. In some projects they will use same load as load test, same number of users as load test. But in some projects they will use only 75% of the users, okay, when compared to load test. So some projects load will be same as load test. Okay, and then in some projects, in some projects load will be 75% of the users. 75% of the users. Okay, when compared with load test. So that means if you are running a load test with 100 users, in endurance test you will run with 75 users. So it depends on project. Again, some projects they will go with same load as load test only. In some projects they will go with 75% of the users when compared with the load test. Okay, so these three are important. If you go to any interview, if they ask why you have to do endurance test, is to identify application response time issues, to identify memory leakage issues, to identify whether there are any server crash logs and all those things. These 3 points you can mention. Then these 3 important types of testing we covered: load testing, stress testing, and endurance testing. Right now, the next type of test is scalability testing. So please make a note of questions. We can discuss again at the end here. Okay, so scalability testing. So what do you mean by this scalability testing? So generally what happens is, now you have done the load test, let's say with 100 users. Now what client is saying that, hey, currently my application is okay with 100 users, but maybe in future, maybe after 6 months or maybe after 1 year, my application might have maybe 2 times or 3 times more load. Okay, let's say today we are running with 100 users, maybe after 6 months or 1 year, my application number of users might increase from 100 to 300. Then what we have to do, considering that future growth, now itself we have to run the 200 users and 300 users load test. Okay, so for example, so here the term scalability, we can refer the term scalability as it is. So you can use it. So the application's ability to handle increasing user without performance degradation. So what it means is, it means that considering future growth, the client will tell, hey, can you run a load test with double the number of users, just to ensure that that my application is able to withstand the load or not. Okay, so in that case you have to do. For example, I'll tell you one practical example. In the recent times, I think exactly, I think around 2 years ago, this happened, in my project. So we all know about pandemic, right? So what happened is, I was working for one of the bank. So then what happened? We all know that banks, of course, everything was closed, and even banks were also part of it. Banks were also closed. Now, what happened during pandemic is, nobody were able to go to bank directly, right? For making transactions or doing some bank related work. So most of the tasks were done online only. So now what client told me is, hey, actually for all the applications you are testing, okay, we could see that the users, the number of users increased drastically. During pandemic, what happened? Because the banks were closed, the number of users accessing the online bank application increased. Now what client informed us is, okay, in the meeting, the client said that, uh, of course this pandemic might not end, okay, in the near future. So and we are sure that most of the users continue to use the application online. So we are expecting a 400% growth in number of users. Okay, so today, let's say if 100 people are using, they are expecting that 400 people might use in the next 6 months. 400 people might use in the next 6 months. Okay, one second, guys. So you got the point, right? So when there are some kind of ad hoc requests like that, then also we should be able to run. So what did client tell to me? So let's say 100 users is what we are testing now. I'm just giving you example. So what client said that in the next 6 months, due to pandemic, our number of users might increase from 100 to 400. That means the client said that there could be a 400% growth. There could be a 400% growth. So what did we do? What we have to do? We should not run directly 400 users. We should not directly run 400 users here. So what we should do is, we should slowly increase, like let's say 100 users we are running. Next, you can run 200 users and tell, okay, client, that whether the application is currently able to handle 200 or not. If this is working fine, then run a 300 users test. Okay, and if it is working fine, tell client that if it is working fine, say that, hey, this application is currently able to handle 300 users. No issues were observed during our performance test. Okay, and then you have to go with 400 users. And then if it's also working fine, you have to tell that with 400 users also the application is working fine. But for for whatever the applications I tested, some of the applications failed to run with 300% load. Okay, only that means the application crashed here itself. Then what we have to do when the application crashes? That means when what we have to do when the application is not supporting 300% users? Then we have to inform the client that with the current infrastructure setup what we have, okay, with the current configurations what we have, our application will be able to handle only 300 users or less than 300 users. That's what we have to tell them clearly. So that what they will do, they will increase the infrastructure. For example, let's say for one of the server RAM is 16 GB, they might increase to 32 GB. Okay, they might increase the CPU configuration. Okay, they can increase the CPU configuration. Anything they can do that. Okay, and anything they can do it. So that concept is called, they call it as scale up or scale out. Okay, in tomorrow's sorry, in the next session I will explain you about what is an scale up and scale out. So in this slide I will tell you what is scale up and scale out in our next session. So in this slide I'm going to tell you about what is scale up and scale out. Okay, so in next session we will discuss that. Okay, so this is about scalability test case. So here 100 users, what we are testing for load test, you can also call it as 100% load test. Okay, this you can also call it as a 200% load test, like that. This you can also call it as, let's say, 300% load test, 300% load test, like this. Okay, so here also you can say 400% load test, like that. So after testing few applications with this number of users, okay, we were able to tell client how these applications worked, whether there is any requirement to increase the infrastructure, upgrade the infrastructure, or add any new infrastructure. Okay, our observations were provided. That is done. Okay, now we are done with four types of testing. Okay, then the last type of testing for today is volume testing. The last type of testing what we'll discuss for today is volume testing. See, the volume testing is same as volume testing is okay. One more important thing in scalability testing, what is the load that we'll apply? Load will increase and the duration is same. Duration will always be run for 1 hour. Test will run for 1 hour. Test will run for 1 hour. Unlike only endurance test we will run for 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, like that. Remaining tests we will run for 1 hour only. Okay. Then what is this volume testing? Volume testing is similar to load test only. Volume testing is similar to load test. Okay, or you can say that you can write like this also. Volume test is same as load test. Volume test is same as load test. Okay, except that there will be huge number of users, sorry, not users, records, okay, added into database. So what do you mean by this? What do you mean by volume test? See, volume test is exactly similar to load test, except on one point. That one point is the number of records what you have in the database, okay, will be high. So you all know, you all might have heard the database like Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, at least Oracle we might have heard, that is a database, right? So for every application there will be a database. That means the data will be stored into the database. One of the example is Oracle. Now what happens here is, for every application we have the database. So in the volume test what we will do is, the number of users doesn't change, it will be same as load test. We will run for 1 hour only. The only thing is, intentionally we will increase the number of users in database. For example, in load test, in Oracle database you have 1 lakh records. 1 lakh records. Okay, in volume test, okay, we will intentionally add, let's say, 3 lakh or 4 lakh records, and then see how the application is responding. Why we will intentionally add? To test more from the database perspective, to test more from the queries perspective, how the database queries are responding, whether there are any long running queries, whether there are any slow queries, slow queries. Okay, so more of the database side. Okay, and who will give you this 3 lakh number? Client will tell you. Client will say that, hey, today the application will have max 1 lakh records in the database, but we are assuming that maybe in 1 year the number of records might increase from 1 lakh to 3 lakhs. So now what we will do today, only with the help of database admin team, with the help of database development or admin team, we will intentionally add 3 lakhs data into the database. Like all junk data we will add, and then we will junk data means valid data only, but still we call it as junk data because we are intentionally adding it from the backend. So when we add all these data to the database, we will verify how the how the transactions or steps, response times are coming up, how the application is performing, how these backend queries are running. So the main intention is to check the backend queries here. Queries, you know the queries, right? You all might have, especially the guys coming from non-IT also, you might have heard about SQL, at least the term. You might write some queries like select star from employee. So this is a query. So these sort of queries run in the database. So when there are huge records, okay, when there are huge records, so for example, let's say there is an employee database, and in the employee database there are 1 lakh records first. Now when I run this query, it should print 1 lakh records, 1 lakh employee names, or whatever it is, employee details. Now if the number of records are 3 lakhs here, if the number of records are 3 lakhs, it should print 3 lakhs with the same query. That means it is getting more data now instead of less data when compared. Okay, when compared to earlier, now it is getting more data. When it is getting more data, the response time should not impact. That's what it means. Okay, so here we will verify the response times only, and the load test will run, and this particular volume test will also run for 1 hour. Everything is same. Everything is same as load test, except that the data will be more in the database. That also we will add intentionally or insert intentionally with the help of database administrator. Okay, so these are the different types of performance tests we have. Okay, we also have something called failover test. Okay, we also have something called failover test, which we will discuss in our next session, because there is a dependency. We have to understand what is a server, app server, web server, all those things. So after discussing those, I will explain you failover testing clearly with the help of diagram. Okay, so there the diagram is important. Okay, so I have these slides for these also. I will share these slides for these types of testing, but I just want to write it in the notepad so that I don't miss any specific points for today. Any questions? So yesterday we discussed what is performance testing, LoadRunner architecture, Vusion sample recording and replay. Today we discussed about types of performance testing. Okay, so what is the first major type of test we do? That is a load test. Who will give the requirement? Client will give the requirement. Will the client give only this requirement? Client will give so many requirements, but we will have to understand like what client wants and what we need to test. Okay, what clients want and what we need to test, we have to understand. Any questions for today? Did everyone understand these types of tests at least? What is a load test? What is a load test? What is a stress test? What is a scalability test? What is the endurance test? Okay, so going forward, we will again discuss in practicals. So these tests like load testing, endurance testing, stress testing, scalability testing, all these testing, we will create scenarios in controller and we will run. Okay, we will do it practically also. I will tell you how to create these scenarios in controller practically. Okay, this is just a theoretical session where we are understanding about different types of performance tests. At least if someone is asking you, you should be able to tell what is a load test, what is a stress test, what is endurance test, and so on, what is volume test. Okay, so hope you got some clarity today. So let's if you don't have any questions, okay, let me see. Mrulanani is asking one question. What happens if we do scalability test directly 400% instead of checking 200 and 300? Good question, Mrulanani. In the scalability testing, Mrulanani is asking, what if we run this particular test directly? Because the client is saying that in the next 6 months, he's expecting the growth by 400%. Now, what she is asking is, why can't we run 400 users directly? Now, if you run 400 users directly, you cannot tell. See, if 400 users test is working fine, that's well and good. no issues in that case. But for some reason, if this test is not successful, then you will not be in a position to tell whether it can withstand this test and this test. So which test? So this is not working, but whether it is able to handle this load or and this load, will you be able to tell? No, right? So that's the reason directly we will not go with bigger numbers. So we will gradually increase. We will gradually increase and tell where exactly the problem is coming. So recently, I think only 10 days back, only 10 days back, there was a requirement for me that I need to test. Okay, I need to test for 5,000 iterations. For 5,000 iterations. Okay, that's the max they said. No, because that's the max, and minimum they gave only some 400. 400 iterations is the max. Sorry, minimum they give. 500 iterations is the max they give. Now they asked me to run these two tests, 400 and 5,000. I ran 400. It went well. They asked me to run 5,000. I said I won't run 5,000. I told them that if I run 5,000 and if it is failing, then how can you tell where exactly it is failing? Is it failing at 600, 800, 1000, 2000, 3000? Where exactly in the middle it is failing? How are we deriving that number clearly? So that's the reason we will not be in a position to tell until what extent the application is supporting. So that's the reason what I said, okay, we ran 400, right? Let's run with 800 first. Next. And after 800, I ran with 1600. Then here the test failed. So what client was saying that client was insisting me to run 5,000, but I didn't accept it. I said, no, let's go in this approach. Let's run 800 and 1600. And 1600 it failed. Now what? Now if I would have run 5,000, without running this 800, 1600, I would have missed it, right? I would have missed it in sense, I would have not known that it is not supporting 1600 itself. So here only I'm telling that it is not supporting 1600. How can it support 5,000? It cannot 5,000. It cannot support 5,000. It is failing at 1600 only. So then what client said that, hey, development team, please look into it. Why it is not supporting 1600? Whether is there any requirement for hardware upgrade? Whether is there any requirement for code upgrade from your side? So they are analyzing that issue. From our end, we have done the job. We have done the best job. Okay. So client should be satisfied with our work. That is important. Okay. Let me take one second. I'll take questions from chat. Kamal is saying that here, Kamal is saying that in the requirement, we are saying that let's take load test. Okay. In this example, let's take this example. In this example, we are saying that we have to run 500 iterations. And then we are saying that load test will run for 1 hour. Now Kamal is asking which will be done, either this or this, which one we have to consider. So we have to prepare our scenario or configure our scenario in such a way that after completion of 1 hour of load test, if you go back and check the results, you will achieve 500 iterations. So for that purpose, the concept called workload modeling will come into picture. So we should evenly pace our execution in such a way that after executing 1 hour of load test, if you go back and check the results, you will definitely achieve 500 for sure. For sure you will achieve. Okay, very soon in next 1 week, so now in the next 4-5 days only, we are going to learn that workload modeling concept. We have 2 sessions for that. Okay, to understand what is workload modeling, what is the formula behind it, how the formula works exactly, such that after 1 hour you will achieve the desired target. Okay, so there is a concept behind it, Kamal. We will discuss in detail in for next in 2 sessions, upcoming sessions. So I'll take one more question. Mayur, so how do you decide a load? How do you decide the load for the stress test if the application is completely new? So good question. So here, actually, we can give a try with the goal-oriented scenario. That means we do not know the number of users, but we want to run for some amount of time and see where exactly is it's failing. That means where exactly it's failing. So we have something called goal-oriented scenario. So maybe we have to run a test once with that type of scenario to see how many users it is supporting. Okay, so we have something called goal-oriented scenario, which we will discuss in our upcoming sessions. Okay, and here business analyst and the product owner also will play a key role if the application is brand new. Okay, and we don't know the volumes. Okay, here the business analyst and the product owner will play a key role. There is an interview question. I have prepared. See, I'm preparing a document for you guys. That means by the completion of this course, if you're attending interview, you should prepare this you should go through this document, LoadRunner basic to advanced interview questions. So I'm preparing question and answer. So here the question what Mayur asked. Okay, here this is the question. See, how do you gather information regarding target volumes to be achieved if your client doesn't know anything about performance testing, or if the application is brand new? What will you do? So here, this is the answer. Three scenarios you have to tell. First scenario, second scenario, third scenario. These three you need to explain to interviewer, and you might also get a follow-up question. That follow-up question, a question and answer also I have mentioned. So I'm trying to do trying to give my best in preparing this document, which will definitely help you. So you see, you are asking questions. The same questions I'm incorporating in the document. I'm happy that you guys are asking good questions. Okay, so Mayur, so we will discuss. Actually, there is one session in next week where we will discuss about non-functional requirements, and in that we have to discuss about one important interview question, what I showed you. In that we will cover that particular thing. Madhu is asking, what is application crash? Application crash means, for example, Madhu, you might have tried to book online movie ticket, right? So when it's a new movie, especially a big star, okay, what happens? So many people will try to book that movie ticket first day itself. What will happen? The application or you will be able to select the seat, and if you click next, application will say, oops, sorry, something went wrong, or it's gone, something like that. That means application is crashed. That means so many people are trying to book the movie ticket, and the application is not able to take the load. Okay, so I will tell you one example, Madhu. What is application crash? Okay, let me tell you this example. So good question, actually. I'll tell you this example. Let's say there is a restaurant. In the restaurant, let's say there are 5 tables. Okay, and then there is one helper. But that helper will take orders from all the customers of 5 tables and deliver the food to them onto the table. Now there is a huge demand. The owner of the restaurant decided to increase the number of tables from 5 to 7. Now the tables are 7. Now this helper alone is ready to handle 7 tables instead of 5. Now apart from previous 5, new 2 tables are added, right? So from those 2 tables also, this helper is taking the food order and delivering the food. Now again, restaurant owner thought that, okay, still the customers are waiting, I don't want them to wait, let's add 2 more tables. Now the restaurant owner added 2 more tables. Now the number of tables in the restaurant are 9. Now the helper is able to take the order from the 9 tables, but the amount of time taken to deliver the food to them is little bit delayed. That means previously for 7 tables, if the helper was able to take order and deliver the food in 20 minutes, now he is able to deliver the food in 45 minutes because the number of tables increased, the number of orders increased, and he is the only helper who is doing the task. Now restaurant owner thought that, okay, still the customers are waiting, let's add final 2 tables. Okay, we don't want to lose customers. So he added two more tables, the restaurant owner. Now the number of tables increased from 9 to 11. Now the helper said that no, this is too much, and out of my hands, I will not be able to serve or take the order. Let's leave the job. He will throw everything and he will go away. That means the helper is not able to handle 11 tables. Okay, the max he could handle was only 9. That too with slowness. That too with very slow food delivery time. That means the helper said, no, it's done. I cannot do anything. Now everything is halted. The restaurant itself, they have to close because there is no helper. No one is ready to serve, take or orders. Nothing is happening. That means the restaurant is gone for a case. So that means from the software perspective also, the application will be able to receive the some amount of expected load. Beyond that, if something is coming, sometimes the application will crash. Same thing. If you are trying to book a cricket match tickets, okay, which is very important match, and all of them are trying to book the ticket. What will happen? Sometimes the application crashes. It will not respond. Even though if you go till payment, it will say, "Oops, something went wrong. Please try again," something like that, or something. Or sometimes what will happen? Even though if you hit the URL, nothing will come. The application is completely gone. You will see page not found, page not found, page not found. Okay, so that is application crash. So when you get application crash, technically you will get some error like 502 bad gateway error, 502 bad gateway error you will get technically. But on the screen you might see a different error, okay, depending on what the developer wants to show. Okay, but technically you will see application crash, 502 bad gateway error, something like that. Okay, so that is application crash. Meenakshi is saying, for stress testing, how much load we will give? You can give any load beyond the load test slowly. So for example, if you are testing a load test with 100 users, so stress testing you can do for with 150 users, 200 users, 300 users, 400 users. That's it. You can stop. That means you stressed the application beyond the load test. Now, if client is explicitly asking you, hey, Meenakshi, can you stress the application until it breaks? Then what you need to do? First, you have to run with 100, 200, 300, 500, 800 like that. And at some point of time, it will crash. I told you the example of restaurant, right? So at some point of time, helper left the restaurant itself. Similarly, here also, at some point of time, the application will crash.
Sir,
Okay.
generally, like for load testing, we are doing the testing for the 100 users. Okay. So for
Hmm.
a stress testing, generally we need to increase the load 2 times or 3 times. Very first time when we are doing the stress testing. So what would be our first approach for doing the stress testing? Like load testing we have done with 100 users. So for
See,
stress testing,
yeah. Good question. But it mostly depends on the client or the development architect, or mostly with them, because when we are working on some project, okay,
okay,
when we are about to run a load stress test, okay, we will have to discuss with the application team, that is the development team. We will have to inform that we are going to run a load test, and we have to ask if there is any suggestions from them. If they are saying that no, you can take a call, what you do, if load test is run for 100 users, you apply the stress with 150 now. That means you increase the load by 50%. Simply you increase the load by 50%. So you run with 150 users.
okay.
Okay, then you can go with 200.
Okay, so that means, sir, if we are going to do stress testing for the first time, then simply we will increase the 50% of the load test, right?
You can do that. Yeah, you can do that. Nobody is going to question you, because at the end of the day, it is the decision of performance tester and
Mhm.
the application team, that is developer. If both of you agree to one particular number, you both can, you can execute the same test, you can execute the stress test with same number. If developer says you can take a call, it's you who has to take the decision, and nobody is going to ask you, why did you run with 150 users, why did you run with 200 users? Nobody is going to ask us. Okay, because we are the performance testers, we know what to do, and we can apply the stress, okay, beyond the load test. If someone is saying apply the stress until you find some issue, then you should keep on adding some users, where until when you find some issue. Either the issue can be high response times. When you say high response times, initially you are getting response times only 1 second, 2 seconds. Now you are getting, now let's say after adding 500 or 1000 users, you are getting 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Now that is one issue that you identified. That is one bottleneck. So until you
Okay.
find some issue means somewhere you will find the issue. It can be response times, it can be application crash, okay, anything.
So, sir, that means we need to confirm with the developer also, not from the client, that we are going to stress test with the 150 users, right?
Yeah, so our primary point of contact will be the development team, okay,
Okay.
and the business analyst. So client, in some projects what will happen is client will regularly join the calls to understand what is happening. In that case,
Okay.
client will also participate in our discussion. But in some projects what will happen, client will not involve. Client, because some clients doesn't know about anything about performance testing. Some
Yeah.
clients doesn't know anything about performance testing. Then what will the client do in the performance testing call or our call? So what they will do is they will have the confidence on us. They will trust us. So what we have to do, because our primary contact is the development team and the business analyst. So we have to get onto a call with them and finalize what is the next test that we have to run. Okay, load test is successful, very well and good. Now what is next? You have to discuss with the development team and work accordingly. You have to inform your
Okay, sir.
manager also. If possible, you can inform your manager also that this is what happened. I'm planning to run a stress test, with 150 users or 200 users. Okay, you should inform him. 99.999% manager will not say anything, because they knows that stress testing is something beyond load test, so they will accept. But if they have something in mind, you accept it, you take it as input and work accordingly. There is nothing harm. So if you say no, I will apply the stress of 200 users, your manager will say no, go with 300 users. No problem, go with 300 users, right? So end of the day, it's your manager only who told you to do. So go with that. There is no hard rule that you have to execute only 150, you have to execute only 200. That's what I'm telling. It's all about the decision of performance testers and development team. Okay, they have to work collaboratively, so
Okay, sir.
to achieve the output.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
And sir,
Okay. Yeah, tell me.
before doing the load test, we will not go for the smoke test.
Good question. Actually, I've just seen the question just now. So
Hmm.
actually, smoke test is something we do before the load test. We do it actually. So why I did not tell you is, it is not any of the major test. It is
Okay.
not any of the major test. But smoke test is important, but it is not one of the major test with respect to performance testing. In smoke test, we are not going to analyze any performance. Are we
Hmm.
going to analyze any performance in smoke test? No. That's the reason I did not include it in types of performance testing. But why we have to do smoke testing is, this is for everyone. So why we have to do smoke testing is, you develop the scripts. Okay, they have given you an application to do a performance test. You develop the
Okay.
scripts. Now, when you develop the scripts, you are ready with the 100% load test. Now, before running 100% load test, you run a test called as smoke test for 5 or 10 minutes max. Okay,
Okay, sir.
5 to 10 minutes with let's say 2 or 3 users you can run.
Okay,
Okay,
sir. So,
and that
sir,
will give you confidence that your scripts are stable, your scripts are ready without errors, and your scripts are running fine in controller, okay, or performance center. So for that purpose, we will run a smoke test.
sir, that means it's mandatory before doing the load test. We will have to do smoke test.
Yes, you have to do a smoke test before load test, which will which will assure you that your scripts are working fine and you are good to go for the
Okay,
load
sir.
test. If smoke
Thank
test
you.
itself fails, then no need to run load test.
Okay.
Okay. If smoke test itself fails, then no point in running the load test, because load test will also fail. So
Right.
only difference is run for only 5 to 10 minutes, run with only 2 to 3 users.
Then, sir, if a small text will fail, then what approach we will go for it?
If smoke test is failing, we have to analyze whether it is a script issue or application issue. So immediately what we will do, we will see where it is failing, and we will quickly manually navigate to the application and see whether it is happening manually or not. If it is
Okay.
happening manually, that is application issue. If it is not happening manually, if manually you are able to navigate through application screens perfectly, then that is your script issue. That means you have to find out where exactly your script is going wrong.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so let me take few more questions. The questions are okay. Okay. Again, there is one more question, that if we are not able to reach the target, it means we need to change the infrastructure. See, so here the point is the target is this 100 users, 500 iterations. So if we are not able to achieve the target, in worst case, it can happen. The reason could be the application performance. If the response times are too high, let's say if the response times are coming 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 1 minute instead of 2 seconds or 3 seconds, then what will happen? The target what you want to achieve, you will will not be reached. First of all, that means you will not be able to reach the target. Then it directly doesn't mean that you have to change the infrastructure. It means that you have to work with development team why you are getting high response times, why the response times are 2 minutes and 3 minutes. With the help of APM tools like application monitoring tools like AppDynamics, Dynatrace, okay, which are in the market now. With the help of those tools, it will be more easy for us to understand where exactly it's going wrong, why it is taking more time. You can directly tell the developer that because of this it is taking more time. So these APM tools will help us. Okay, as per yesterday's demo session, we also have one session for AppDynamics, right? So there I'll tell you how to capture metrics from AppDynamics. How can we confirm that, what are the slow methods, what are the slow running queries, and all those things. Yes, Meenakshi. More records means more test data in the database. That's it. Nothing else. Yes, exactly
Okay,
correct.
sir. And sir, one more question I have. Like for endurance testing, as you said, like the load will be the same for load test, right? And sometimes it would be a 75% of the load test. So we need
Yes.
to check it from the developer or client that on
No, no,
which.
no. No, no. You have to check it with your project manager or lead, like how they are following. For example, let's say you have joined a new team, okay, and there are already 3 or 4 people working in the project. They might be
Okay,
working on different applications, but you all are reporting to same manager. Now you have to check with them like what they are following, because within that manager everyone will follow the same rule for endurance test, okay, mostly. So you have to check with them like what exactly they are following, because all of them are working for the same client, right? So if all of you are working for the same client, better to follow the uniformity. Like if your colleagues are using 75% or 100% of the load for endurance test, you also do the same thing. If you are the only person in the project and you are the only person who has to take decision, it's up to you. Nobody is going to question why did you take 100% load, why did you take 75% load. No one is going to question us, okay, that
and
I can guarantee.
okay, and sir, it is mandated to execute the load test. Sorry, endurance test.
Yes,
Whether
for
client
yes.
will tell us that you need to execute their endurance test.
No, we should only tell the client. We should only tell the client that these are the mandatory tests. Don't include volume test. At
Hmm.
least load test, stress test, and endurance test. These 3 tests you tell them mandatorily that, okay, or you can include stress or scalability, anything, either one of those, not both. So you tell them
Okay,
that, let's say these 3, like load, endurance, and then scalability. You
stress.
tell them that these, yeah,
Okay,
you can say stress also. You tell them that these 3 are important to finalize the application performance, okay, to
okay,
understand or to verify the application performance. So then, because nowadays most of the clients doesn't know anything about performance testing.
okay,
So when they don't know anything about performance testing, we have to guide them. So these are the tests that we need to do as part of performance testing to ensure that there are no performance issues in the production.
okay. So that means that these are the three main tests we need to
Yes,
test:
yes,
load,
yes,
stress, and endurance.
yes. Load, stress, or endurance, or load, endurance, or scalability test and scalability.
Scalability is also important, sir.
See, either you can go with stress or scalability, because either ways both you are increasing the load only. But in scalability, client is explicitly telling you what is the future growth and all. But in stress, client is not going to say anything. The client will say just apply the stress. So we need to keep on adding the stress. So you can tell client that first we will run load test, then run endurance test. These two should be successful first. Then if both of these are successful, then you can suggest client that let's go for a stress testing and see how it's working. Okay, so because client will trust us, because end of the day, client wants only end user satisfaction. Who is the user actually working on the application? Okay, so unless and until they complain, client will not tell anything to us. So we have to ensure that whoever are the end users, they should not face the performance issues. So that for that we have to work.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah. So these, yes, Radhika, these scenarios we will discuss in NFR again in detail. Yes, good. Non-functional requirements, right? We will discuss the scenarios, not scenarios in sense, like what are the different scenarios we have, like when the client doesn't know anything about performance testing. Okay, when it's a brand new application, how to handle all those things. The yesterday's recorded session, you will be getting it. You will be getting it in a YouTube link, I guess. So you should get a YouTube link. When you click on it, it should play in the YouTube automatically. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what will happen is going forward, all the recorded sessions will be appended to the YouTube playlist. So that means, so they will ask you, so whoever the participants are registering for this course, right? So maybe in a day or two, they will ask your email IDs, the Gmail IDs. So you have to provide Gmail IDs to them. So they will add it to the YouTube library. So what you need to do is you just need to log in to YouTube with your Gmail. And then if you go to library section, you will see the playlist there, and that playlist will be there forever. So whenever you
Okay,
want,
sir.
you can go and play it there. Okay, you need not download and waste memory also.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so hope everyone are good with these concepts, and everyone got to know where they have to check the recorded sessions, right? So anything else? So let's meet in the next session. Maybe mostly weekends we don't have session, right? So probably we might have session on Monday. So where we will discuss about servers, protocols, and the failover testing, the very important one. Like in the recent times, it's very important type of testing that every client wants. Somewhere they have brought this into the market, and now everyone wants to do failover testing. So we will discuss that, what is failover testing, how we have to test from our end. Okay, so let's connect in the next session. Anything else? If you have any questions over the weekend, right, ping me in the group. I will call you individually. I will explain. Okay.
Okay, sir. Sir, on